Matt Pye, you're helping me with this episode.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
As I was thinking about this episode, I was like, hey, it kind of reminds me of When Harry Met Sally, because you know the part where at the beginning of Harry Met Sally, they have all these couples and they've been married for different amounts of time and they're telling all their stories and everything.
Talking over each other like we're trying not to do.
One couple talks over each other and they're so cute.
You know where we met? In an elevator.
I was visiting family.
In the Ambassador Hotel in Chicago,
He was on the
Illinois.
3rd floor. I was on the 12th.
I rode up 9 extra floors just to keep talking to her.
9 extra floors.
Yeah, because we're talking about relationships and you're my committed relationship.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
You're mine.
Good. We've been married almost 10 years.
Yeah, it'll be 10 years in March.
Very exciting. And it's been a journey. We met in college.
We did. We were in, I think, 1, maybe 2 of the same classes.
Yeah, and then we didn't get married until like 10 years after.
Yeah, for sure. Because you were in Italy for a lot of that.
So today we're talking, I talk with Ted Futris.
Yes, and I got to meet him. He's a great guy.
Ted is one of the specialists with UGA Extension, and he's from North Carolina, like we are.
Yeah, I mean, like you are. I was only there for like a decade.
True. Anyways.
Plus a few years as a kid.
True. This is the Facts of Life, where research-based knowledge from the Family and Consumer Sciences is brought to you with life applications. I'm your host, Amanda Harner.
And I'm Hope Smith, a family and consumer science educator and the graphic guru of the pod.
Our guest today is Dr. Ted Futris, UGA Extension Family Life Specialist. And these are the facts on healthy relationships and elevate. Like me, you're from North Carolina. Mm-hmm. I know some things about your background and history, and so knowing some of my own background and history, I'm just wondering if you consider yourself Southern.
Yes, I mean, I grew up in North Carolina, but my parents immigrated here from Greece.
Okay.
So I'm a first gen, and actually English was my second language. So
okay, so that part I did not know. That's interesting.
Growing up, I mean, I was learning English and you know, as my parents were learning English, and so that was always tough. But yeah, growing up in North Carolina, going to school in North Carolina, I think the only time I've been up north was I spent 6 years at Ohio State the Ohio
State University, which some of our family would be proud of. My husband's side.
Yeah, go Bucks. And before coming here to Georgia in 2006.
Okay.
But I don't have a Southern accent, although you'll hear me say y'all sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a funny conversation because my parents are from the Midwest, so there are things that I feel very connected to the South because most of my life has been spent in the South, but at the same time my family culture was very much not Southern family culture. I don't know, I'm very interested in cultural things because of some of my background. So what led you into relationship education?
Because I needed help in my own relationship. I think we often go into professions because of some kind of rooted need for support of ourselves. But yeah, it wasn't really initially on my radar. When I was in school, I was really interested in working with dads, working with fathers.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of my early work focused on working with teen dads, divorced dads. I've worked with incarcerated fathers, and a lot of the research, a lot of the work I was doing, a lot of the research in general consistently found that the best predictor of how engaged fathers are and how involved they are in their children's lives is the quality of the relationship they have with their child's mother. And so a lot of them, my work's shifted to, how do we support fathers and their children's mothers, whether they're together or not, working well together, or parenting well together. Then that shifted towards, how do we then also strengthen those relationships? Because when we look at a number of children growing up in single-parent homes, they didn't all start that way. And we look at children, but today we have 45 to 50% of children born each year are born to unmarried moms. But the majority of those moms are in a relationship with their child's father at the time of birth. It's just those relationships struggle. When you're a first-time parent, for example, there are a lot of struggles. There are a lot of firsts as a parent, a lot of stressors, and those stressors take a toll on any relationship. But when they're not committed and together, it's even harder. And so
whether that commitment is to each other or
right.
even if they've decided not to be together as co-parents.
It's just hard. Yeah. And so, but when we know that the majority of those dads are in the mom's lives and their child's lives early on, and so many of them disengage over time, well, how do we support those relationships? And then how do we support the relationships of mothers and fathers that are together in committed relationships, whether married or not, to last? Because we know from research that children, on average, thrive better in two-parent stable homes. Now, this isn't to say that children in single-parent homes all struggle. They don't. They're resilient. They're strong single-parent households, and it also doesn't mean, and this is how I kind of got started into this work. It also doesn't mean that a strong two-parent home can only be made up of a mom and a dad. It could be two moms, it could be two dads, but the quality of that relationship is like the foundation for a stable, healthy home.
That leads us perfectly into why are healthy relationships so important, and maybe speak on it beyond just the nuclear family and how that feeds into the community as well.
Sure. At least in first married households. Typically the relationship between the parents comes first before the relationship between the parents and their child, right? So that serves as a strong foundation for how they parent, how they work together, how they manage their lives together. A long line of research showing that conflict in the relationship leads to more harsh parenting, less warmth, less support. So it spills over into how they parent. When we look at, even in unmarried households, we see those same patterns of conflict, tension, how they handle stress, spills over into how they parent. There's also links to, that tension in spilling over into the workplace. Because it's hard as individuals to compartmentalize our lives, to say, well, what happens here doesn't affect me here, right?
Right.
And so just like stress at work, bringing that home is going to impact how you interact and respond to your partner, to your kids. So a healthy relationship, which I know we'll get into in terms of what that looks like, you have the skills to manage those stressors, right? And then when we look at step families, remarried families, blended families, however you kind of want to label them, where you're bringing in, children from prior relationships. That parent-child relationship is usually the foundation because that was first. That came before the new couple relationship. But still, the couple relationship, you got to find a way to respect that and create new histories, new memories, new patterns, but also honoring what came before. So that takes some work, and as a couple, you gotta be willing to commit to working on that.
Yeah. From personal experience, that is something that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
It can be very, very challenging.
Were you a step kid, or are you?
No, both of my parents were married. Both of my husband's parents were married. I am my husband's second wife.
Oh, okay.
And so I have 3 stepchildren. They're teenagers, and but it has been a journey for all of us. Yeah. And so and
how you parent is a lot different.
Yeah. And I think it's something that people who are in it, whether you're a step parent or whether you're a biological parent, you begin to realize as you connect with other people going through similar things that there's so many different family situations, and there's so many complexities behind it, and which makes a counselor's job very challenging if you're in counseling.
If you're in counseling,
Yeah.
But we're not doing counseling.
But we're not doing counseling.
And I'm not a counselor. And I'm not a counselor.
Okay, good.
I'd be charging you a lot more if I was.
That is very true. All right, so you hit on, we were going to get into what healthy relationships look like. So that is a good question. And I think you would agree that healthy relationships can look different. What are some key things that would say, hey, this is what healthy looks like in a relationship? Yeah. And those are some of the overriding things that we should be really aiming for.
Several years ago, colleagues of mine in other states and I worked together. Our extension network of specialists worked together to kind of spend some time looking at what the research shows, right? There are a lot of different models out there that provide relationship guidance, as you've told your listeners before, in terms of what extension is about. We're really evidence-based, research-informed type programming. So we wanted to see what the research said about healthy relationships, and we spent a few years combing through decades of research and organizing in such a way to say, okay, well, here kind of what we have found, or research has found, are kind of those 7 core skills and principles of a healthy relationship. The first is commitment, intentionality. Folks call it different things. John Gottman refers to it as laying the foundation of a house. Right? If you don't have a really strong foundation, it's hard to build a stable home. Right?
Yeah.
And there's ways to demonstrate commitment in a relationship, more than just like, yes, you can put a ring on it. It's one way to demonstrate commitment.
Like Beyonce.
Right, exactly, right? But it's like a commitment to like put forth the effort, being intentional with your words, being mindful of choices you make. A lot of it just comes down to effort. So how do we do that? How do we demonstrate that? So we work with couples to reinforce those skills, but you got to have that as a core foundation. Then we look at, often less studied, but research does show what we refer to as self-care as being important. The analogy we often use is what happens when you're on a plane and the flight attendant's walking through all the things and they say, and in case of emergency, these air masks fall down, put it on you first before you put it on your who you're with, right? And so that same approach where in relationships, so you've got to take care of yourself, both mentally, physically, emotionally, because if you're not healthy yourself, eating well, sleeping well, exercising, doing things that promote your own health, it's hard to be there for someone else. Now, there's also the reverse, where a lot of research shows that a strong relationship, healthy relationship, also leads to better health. And so it's a back and forth process. So that's really important. And then you get into some of those skills that most folks often immediately think about. Communication, like, how well do we communicate? But it's more than just how well we communicate, and it's what we say, how we say what we say, our tone, a lot of the nonverbal messaging. You could say, I love you, but if you're rolling your eyes while you're doing it, it doesn't have the same meaning.
It doesn't have the same, yeah.
No.
Exactly.
And so how do you foster that friendship? We also, intimacy is really important. Most of your listeners probably, when I say the word intimacy, are immediately going to think sex. Yes, sex is important in a relationship, safe, healthy, sex. But by intimacy, we really mean understanding, connection with your partner. We like to, in our program Elevate, we'll talk about later, we refer to intimacy, like understanding and connecting with your partner. Do you know what's going on in your partner's life? Are you aware of their concerns, their stressors, the likes, dislikes? Is your partner a morning person or a night person? And you make adjustments accordingly, right? And then there's how we handle conflict in a relationship. Not just like when it comes up, but also how it comes up. Do we approach it harshly, or do we go in ready for a fight? And how do we react in those situations? And then we found that another element of a healthy relationship is a strong support system. Do you surround yourself with folks that support you? Do you have folks to turn to? Also, as a couple, do you provide service? Do you serve others? Research shows that couples that provide service together also strengthen their connection to each other through that service.
That is something that I really appreciate about one of the areas that's drawn out in the research and the program that you oversee. Partly because I think it's a really good thing for the couple, but it's also a really good thing for the community. I think there's the opportunity for the community sometimes where people aren't maybe exposed to healthy relationships. Sometimes that is the place that they are exposed to how a healthy relationship is functioning well.
And there's a lot of need for support and service in communities, and so as a couple, finding what are the ways that bring you meaning and joy, and things that you can do together.
Yeah, absolutely. So why should couples in Georgia care about this?
Well, I think couples everywhere should care about this. We know research shows that healthy and stable two-parent homes are better for kids in general, overall, on average. And that children thrive from those homes. And communities thrive. I mean, there's clear links between stable homes and economic prosperity in the community. Bringing in two incomes to raise a child or a family, is a lot easier than one. Two sets of eyes on a kid is better than one. I mean, there's just two often is better than one in terms of support. Now, yes, single-parent homes, for example, often turn to other sources of support, extended family, and that's where they become even more resilient and those children thrive, is when they're surrounded by other sources of support as well. But we do know that those healthy, stable relationships, ideally marriages, we don't see a marriage rate dropping. Everyone still loves marrying, and in fact we see divorce rates maybe have dipped some, but not by much. I mean, we're still seeing around 30 to 40% of marriages ending in divorce, but we see a lot of folks then divorce and then remarry and try again.
Does Georgia have a higher rate of divorce than other states?
For a long time, for almost 12 plus years, Georgia did not track divorce rates, and but they started tracking that again, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And divorce rates in Georgia are about the same as they are
the rest of the nation.
In the rest of the nation. It's
Okay.
not higher or lower.
Let's shift a little bit, and we've already kind of mentioned Elevate. We obviously have Elevate back here. Elevate is a curriculum that we use in UGA Extension. It has a history beyond UGA Extension, and it's used beyond UGA Extension. But that is the curriculum we were referring to when you were kind of talking about repackaging things into a workshop format. Can you unpack a little bit more about Elevate and maybe even why the repackaging of the information was necessary and where it originally came from?
So, like I said, a team of us developed kind of this model of what healthy relationships look like, those 7 principles and skills. And then that model served as a foundation for training curriculum. A team of us from colleagues from Iowa, Missouri, North Carolina, Arkansas worked together on and implemented with child welfare professionals, training child welfare professionals on what healthy relationship skills look like and providing a toolkit for them to use when working with clients during home visitation programs or other services to help facilitate healthy relationships. Feedback we got was, the need for packaging this to deliver to couples. I then worked with my colleagues at Auburn University and packaged this as a curriculum. Originally, 8-hour curriculum evolved into a 12-hour curriculum. I mean, it can be delivered 8 to 12 hours to really reinforce those skills in in fun, interactive ways.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want it to be where we're just talking to couples, but couples are part of the learning experience, and so couples interact with each other to practice these skills, to kind of talk with each other, and kind of use it as an opportunity to reconnect, maybe learn more about each other, help them understand each other a
Learn
little bit more.
some real good tips, some things that we still use today. Being intentional with our words.
I always take my breaks when I need to de-escalate, because I'm being intentional with how I treat him and what I say to him. It rolls over to what the kids see and hear.
Yeah, the more education you get, the better you are as a person.
I like that. Give me a kiss. That was good. I like it.
So they're fun games and activities along with a workbook that they fill out together to practice and reinforce those skills.
Yeah, and some couples have talked about how they go back to that workbook too, or make it a regular part of something that they do together to reconnect and revisit some of those principles, which I think is really cool that there's like something physical for people to take away and go back to pretty easily. What would you say is the overarching goal of Elevate?
A couple things. One, one of the underlying themes throughout Elevate is helping couples learn how to regulate stress and their emotions and their reaction to stress. We want you to elevate your love, not your heart rate, right? When individuals are able to manage the stress that comes into their lives or that they're experiencing, they're better able to tune in and connect with each other. But when stress is crowding you out, it's hard to hear each other, it's hard to be calm, it's hard to be responsive. So we really focus on helping couples find ways to regulate that stress. We use techniques like mindfulness, breathing exercises, to just take a moment, be present and in the moment, and just calming your heart rate so that you can then be there and listen to each other. So we focus on that on the foundation. That's kind of core and critical throughout the program. We reinforce that practice, and then helping couples develop or reinforce. We're not saying couples come in not having these skills. Many of them do, and what we hear from couples is this just reminded them of what they needed to do more of or needed to do a little bit better. So we're elevating their use of these skills as well in their relationship throughout. So we like to say in the program, we want you to take your relationship to the next level. Right? So we're not about counseling, we're not about fixing a troubled relationship. Here we want to kind of come in and at an okay place, you're at a good place, or you're at a great place. Well, going through this program is going to take you a notch higher.
I have mentioned a couple things that I really like about this curriculum, but I think one of the other ones that I personally really appreciate that people maybe don't think about as much as a skill, but really is a skill, is learning your own physical responses to stress and how much that can affect your relationship. And there's a lot of principles in this that do translate to a number of other relationships. So learning to recognize how your body is responding to different things, even for help talking to your boss, can be a very useful thing so that you don't lose it.
Or when your kid talks back at you.
Yes.
As a parent, it's really easy to say, because I told you so. But often, we all were kids and we know how we reacted when we were told that. We were like, well, I'm gonna, I don't care what you say. So how do you regulate that emotion in the moment to help educate your kid on and guide your child in a way that they will listen
and help them learn how to respond. It's funny that you bring that one up, because I distinctly remember telling one of my stepchildren that I hated it when my parents responded that way. So I was like, I made a big deal about how I try very hard not to respond that way. And then, of course, because I had made such an impression with that the first time I ever did it, because I just was so like frustrated and the questions just kept coming, and I was like, I'm just burnt out today and I'm done.
Well, why?
Because I said
Why?
so.
Why?
Exactly.
Why?
Yeah.
You know?
And she's like, but you said you didn't like to say that. And I was like, you're right. I'm sorry, but sometimes it is just simply I've made a decision and I'm the authority.
Yeah. And just knowing how to do that, you know, how to be calm, and here's the thing. I know these are things we teach, and I know these are things that help. It doesn't mean that it's easy, and it definitely doesn't mean that I do these all the time. So like you know, my wife probably listening to this is like, yeah, he doesn't do this all the time, and like, no, I do not. You know,
We're all a work in progress.
We're all a work in progress. I mean, if relationships were easy, then we wouldn't have the struggles that we have.
Right.
Today. So that's why, like, one of the core components in Elevate and in healthy relationships is that intentionality. So it's like that commitment to just keep trying. It's like, okay, you know what? I messed up. So what do I need to do to back up and for us to kind of get on the right track?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes work. And I mean, I think some relationships, we feel the work aspect of it more than other relationships, or sometimes it's just a time frame and a period of time in our relationship history that.
Well, and also, I mean, if you think about like most relationships, like as a kid and as a parent and as a spouse or a partner, you're more likely to say something to a relative that you know than you are to someone who you're not closely connected to. So like some of the things you would probably say at home, you would never say in the workplace. Right? And the restraint you have often in the workplace may not exist at home because you feel like this is a place I feel like I
feel
can.
safe.
I feel safe.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't. It's just, how can we show that same restraint at home? Because words do hurt sometimes. And we often find it easier to say those things to the one we love, thinking that, oh, they'll just take it, but it still hurts.
Yeah. We talk about Elevate as being evidence informed, and want to go down that path a little bit and have you unpack a little bit what we mean about that.
Okay. What we teach is grounded in research, right? I described earlier what healthy relationships are, so then we find ways to help educate folks and what that looks like. But then the evidence base is, okay, well, does it make a difference? So I know my colleagues at Auburn, as well as our team here at UGA, and others in other states that have been using Elevate, collect data from participants, from couples before and after the program. In our case, in the case in Auburn, they also follow up 6 months, and I think they do 12 months later, just to see, are couples practicing these skills? Are they happier in their relationships? Do they feel safer in their relationships? Do they feel more committed? And then also we measure, how does this spill over and influence how you parent together, how you feel as a parent? Are you less stressed? Because when couples communicate well and are able to deal with their differences more effectively, then they work together as parents better. And when you work together as a parent and you feel supported as a parent, then you're less stressed as a parent, which means then you're a better parent to your kids. But then also we measure other outcomes like financial distress, because the number one thing couples fight about is money. So now that you have these skills on how to discuss your needs, your wants, your goals, then are you able to discuss it around money? You know? And so how does that influence then how you're feeling financially and how you handle money? So we measure those different outcomes that we know are really important to healthy, stable families, and so then we test that, and we're actually finding, as well as others and our colleagues at Auburn are finding, that couples on average after participating in the program are reporting improvements in their relationships, are communicating more effectively, are managing conflict better, are feeling more connected, more satisfied. In fact, they're also feeling more supported as parents. They're feeling less stressed as parents. They're feeling less distressed when it comes to finances. So we're finding all those expected outcomes. So when we find that, and we find that consistently with different types of couples, then that's what makes the program evidence-based.
I enjoyed how thorough the program was. You know, each unit kind of bled into the next one, so we had a really nice foundation. And I like that a lot of it was strengths focused. So what are we doing well as what can we continue to grow? I think it was really well balanced on that front.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of reinforcement on the things that we've done that the program shows in the early parts, and then also giving us some recognition for what we need to work on, and what we haven't done, and everything's been pretty relaxed as far as the classes are concerned. Like, first day makes you nervous, but then after that, everything kind of flows, and you get to know the people that you're hanging out with.
Yeah, it's very welcoming. It's not like clinical or really intimidating feeling coming in. It's just kind of a group of people learning together, which is nice.
The one that I find most intriguing was the value, like valuing the affection that we have for each other, and showing that affection and respect that we have for each other has definitely been eye-opening.
I think we've been more closer every time we come here, so it's like if we might have a bad day, we end up like, when we come here, we're good. We're happy.
Yeah.
How do we conduct evidence-based research in Elevate?
Because Elevate is a relatively new program, right? So when there's something new, we're trying to establish, like, does it work? And does it work the way we're implementing it? Does it work for everybody, or do we need to make some adjustments? So as part of the program, because we have federal funding from the Administration of Children and Families, we're able to cover the cost to actually collect data. And we collect data from couples. And what I mean by that is, when couples sign up, we explain to them what the research involves, and if they want to participate, they can do the program without doing the research. But thanks to the funding, we were able to provide some really nice financial incentives to do the research. So for roughly about 30 minutes of each person's time, they're getting about $25, $30. We ask couples to complete a survey before the very first class, and then after the program wraps up, we'll follow up with them about a couple months later to see how things are going. They'll fill out another survey, and they don't have to come in. We're just asking some questions, some personal questions about how they're feeling, how things are going in their relationship, that they each fill out separately. And then about 6 months later, we follow up with them again to fill out one last survey. So for our research, it's really about filling out surveys to let us know how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what's going on in the relationship.
I would say the best part for me was breaking down some of the things that I knew in the back of my mind, but actually being able to put terminology with that. The mind-heart connection, and making sure that I'm making decisions based on rational thought and not emotion. So taking time to calm down before I respond, to make sure I make the best decision possible and take care of my partner in the best possible way.
I've enjoyed just the reminder and the practice of being more intentional with my time and my words, what I say to him, planning things a little bit better, and practicing patience a little bit more, just having more intentional time together.
The intentionality piece is a big thing, because we talked about in class, if you plan something, you're not going to do it. Just go ahead and do it. I work at the police department, obviously, and we had posters posted on our exit doors, and they were inside in our break room. So every time I would walk past one of those windows, I would see the Elevate flyer. I actually stopped one day and read it, and I'm not in it for the gift cards, but I won't lie and say that the gift cards weren't a motivator to sign up.
And he said, hey, what do you think about doing this? That they offered this at the police department, and it looked like a helpful thing, because even when it's good, it can always be better.
Great feedback. The best feedback is also when they take time to write out how they're doing. I mean, just to read some of their stories about how the program has helped their relationship, how they were kind of on that edge of like, where is this relationship going? And then this helped them kind of pull them back from the edge and prioritize and just feel reconnected. And then sometimes for some couples, it's a realization, this isn't working for us. We can't do this. And for them, it's an end. Some realize that we need a little bit more, so they then go into counseling to really work on the areas that they need to work on. And we consider those success stories as well. Sometimes just realizing it's not going to work. I remember early on, before Elevate, programming with engaged couples, and we would have some couples who were engaged that after the program, a few weeks later, realizing, yeah, maybe this isn't the right choice for us. Right?
Been there before too.
And it's better. It's better to know then than
yes, it is.
To know later when you have children and you're like, yeah, this was never a good choice.
Yep. Absolutely. So. Yeah. Yep. And it's a hard decision to make, but it is definitely better to make that decision before making that commitment.
Yeah.
When you're saying Elevate is new, can you put a time frame on how new it is?
Yeah, I mean, we released Elevate back in 2014, so 9 years ago.
Okay.
And there was federal funding from the Administration for Children and Families where our friends down in Alabama were able to test Elevate using what's referred to as randomized control trial study, where couples said, hey, we want to participate, and they would get randomly put into the program right away, or they would wait 6 months and get the program later. And they would compare those two groups to see over that 6-month period, how are they doing, right? And so assuming that all things are equal and similar between the groups, between those groups of couples, other than one got the program and one didn't, you'd expect to see that those getting the program on average did better, and that's what they found, right? Here in Georgia, we were able to implement the program. We didn't randomize because of who we were working with. We were working with families involved in the child welfare system. So these are families in need, and they needed services right away. So they were often referred, and we were putting them into the program. And so these are families with low resources, high levels of stress, participating in the program, and we found similar positive changes. So we're able to compare what we found in our study to what they found in Alabama and what others are finding in other states. That was a 5-year grant cycle, so then we made some tweaks to the curriculum after we learned some things we need to tweak here, that maybe the messaging could be delivered a different way. And also because of COVID, we had to transition to moving our classes virtually. And we found that couples actually did enjoy participating virtually. We worked with about 120 couples that summer. And so we thought, well, does this work as well for couples virtually as it does in person? So that's what we're doing with this new grant cycle. We're in our 3rd year right now, and we're working with couples in various counties across Georgia that are participating in person, but we also have our online virtual option where couples from anywhere in Georgia can hop online, join a group of couples and participate in the program. And they're getting the exact same program, just in a virtual setting instead of in person. Our research now is just looking at, do we see the same changes in both groups? And so far things are looking really, really good.
I like that we get to talk about the actual research project that's happening in real time on the podcast, because if people remember back to the episode we did on what is extension, we talked a little bit about this. Most research is really about saying, here's what the evidence shows. We're going to do things very grounded in what the evidence shows that is well studied and very well known. And we're going to just be making very slight adjustments along the way until we tweak it to the point where it's, as you said, knowing that it really works for all couples. Like it captures the full audience of what you're trying to capture. That's part of what's important too. And I hope that the audience is able to take away also that you said it's a relatively young project, and I think a lot of people in their minds would think, oh, it's the first time they've ever done this, and it's, it's the first year, that kind of thing. But 9 years
Yeah.
And research is a short period of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, so couples who are participating in the program are not only helping improve their relationships, but they're helping us improve the program so that we can make it better for other couples in the future. You know, and we have a lot of students working on the project and they're learning, and we're just finding that it helps couples of all backgrounds. So it's great.
It is a great program. My husband Matt and I are going through the virtual one now. I offer it in my community, and my husband actually facilitates it with me. It's a lot easier for us to speak to the experience of walking through it if we have gone through it.
Do it yourself.
So, Matt, we went to Elevate, obviously, and I mean, we participated in Elevate even though, like, we both agree that we have a strong marriage.
Yes.
But I think we both agreed too that it was valuable. Like, what part did you find most valuable?
I found it valuable simply to reflect on our relationship and on things that we do well, and to hear other people at the same time, because so many of the experiences were similar that I could easily identify, and I could recognize in one another's stories, oh yeah, that's probably going to become a problem in a moment. That's probably about what they're going to say. Yeah. But at the same time, it was a fresh way to just really focus on us, which is our goal, right? Is to build one another up and to get some more ideas for how to do that.
Right. I think for me, I really appreciated that it was a set aside time to talk about things. Like, I feel like we had really good skills going into our marriage, and we had a really good foundation in that way and in some others. But it was nice to have like this deliberate set aside time to re-examine things, including ourselves, not just our relationship. So
yeah, for sure. And it was nice that it was free.
Yeah, it was nice to get $350 in gift cards.
I didn't mind that at all. A new couch.
All right, that's right. A new couch. Exactly.
You know, you have a car, if you don't take it in for periodic tune-ups, change the oils, check the tires, it's going to run down on you and leave you stranded someday, right?
Yeah.
Relationships are kind of the same. I mean, you periodically just need to check in, tune it up, see how can you spice things up, or maybe there's some things that you used to do that you haven't been doing in a while that will be helpful. Or we also, you know, as individuals, we grow, we change. Our interests, our goals, our needs, they evolve. And so checking in regularly to see, you know, where are you? Like our phones, they get regular system updates. You know, well, relationships need system updates too.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
In closing, what are some of the most surprising things that have come out of the research over the last 9 years? Or exciting? Yeah,
I mean, it is great to see how, you know, we're seeing couples change over time. One of the things we do see, it's also a challenge in terms of, like, as a researcher to figure out, like, how do we address this, is when we survey couples at the beginning, we're finding that sometimes guys overestimate how good things are.
Okay, you know how we love to watch reels together?
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Okay, do you remember the one with this couple?
Shaving my face is the worst. You have to do it all the time. Sometimes I cut myself too.
Then we see his wife covered in shaving cream holding a razor. She does not look happy.
It's different because this is my face. It's sensitive. Silly. You missed the spot.
And then he puts a shaving cream mustache on her and says, well, that should help.
Okay, so yeah, Ted's comment totally made me think of that video because I love it. It's so hilarious.
I mean, yeah, because people in a relationship are different people, and so we don't always see things eye to eye and from the same perspective.
True.
They tend to rate things going pretty well. Either they really think it's going well, or they don't want to acknowledge that it's not. I think women are a little bit more accurate barometers of the temperature in a relationship. And we often see a difference at the beginning of the program, men rating things a little bit more positively, women a little less positively than the men. What we find is at the end of the program, several weeks later, women are reporting things are better. So we're seeing a change. Men, on the other hand, they're about where they were at the beginning. So we're not seeing a change, but a change has actually happened. Right? Because what they've learned is, in the course of the program, they learn like, oh, okay, yeah, it wasn't as good as I thought. Yeah, I'm not doing that. And now I realize, so I didn't know what I didn't know until I know. Until I knew. And so now they're improving. So now things are better. And when we actually directly ask, do you feel things have gotten better? They're like, yes. But measurement-wise, we don't see that. And so which is really great. And actually, I have colleagues down in Florida that actually tested this in a way where they measured everything at the beginning of the program, and then at the end of the program they measured it again in terms of like how things are now. But they also asked, now answering those same questions you answered at the beginning, how would you rate yourself now, but in terms of thinking about before the program? And what they often found was the scores at the beginning of the program were on average higher than what they report at the end of the program they would have, how things were at the beginning. Does that make sense? So it's what's referred to as retrospective pre-test.
Which can be kind of challenging sometimes,
Yeah, so you realize things weren't as great before as I thought they were.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting thing that we find. But the good news is that our couples are more in sync, I think, at the end, after the program, that they're doing these things. And then I think another real neat thing is to see how those changes in how they're connecting with each other are linking to other important things that influence stability in the home, quality of the home. So we're seeing that link to parenting stress, that those couples who show those improvements are actually also showing decreases in parenting stress. They're also showing decreases in how financially distressed they feel because they're connecting and talking about their finances a little bit more. It doesn't mean that they're making more money.
Right.
It just means that
they're working
together through it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's really neat.
And maybe having more constructive conversations than they were before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share, make sure people are aware of?
No, I mean, I think, I encourage couples to check out the program, check out the other resources that Extension has as well. And and just take a moment to elevate your own relationship.
Research-based resources represented and related to this episode of Factor Life podcast can be found in the episode notes and description.
The views and thoughts expressed in the studio podcast are the speaker's own and do not necessarily represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the University of Georgia or the guest organizations and board employers. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The University of Georgia name, as well as those guest organizations, and all firms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service.
These are the Facts of Life. Thanks for joining us. Check out our website at facsoflife.extension.uga.edu. That's FACS of life.extension.uga.edu.